You are in the Where's Huddle with me, Bram, and with me, per usual, webmaster of all things video and sound, Maxime.
How's it going?
And rejoining us after way too long, a noted sports author with bylines at The Ringer, The Herald, Real GM and Fansided, the former Warriors beat writer for the Bay Area News Group, the current host of Locked On Heat, Locked On NBA, and the Real GM podcast, the exact guy you need if you're looking for Jimmy Butler knowledge and a man who can deliver a triggering food take on command. Mr. Wes Goldberg, what's going on, Wes?
What a week, fellas. Oh boy.
So is this enjoyable for you, Matt? So like for me, on the outside looking in, I only have to do, one piece of content at our leisure. Whenever it is we
Right.
decide to dip our toe into the NBA scape, we do, and we fire off a podcast. For you, who has to live through the hellscape that is the NBA trade deadline, enjoyable, nightmarish? Like, is this adrenaline? Is it like finals week for you? Yeah, what's the experience here?
Adrenaline is the right word, right? Like you kind of keep all like the new every little breaking news item just kind of keeps it's a little bit more fuel here. Also, all the coffee is a lot of fuel. Uh that tends to be what I have the taste of coffee just permanently in my mouth. That is basically what the last 2 weeks have created here. And so it is enjoyable because what I do is I get to just talk about basketball and
Yeah,
monitor the trade deadline. The numbers kind of get a little much, but I don't mind that
sure.
maybe as much as some people. And I really like the process of when the dust is settled, trying to evaluate what's going on. But being in the center of this, as somebody who covers the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler and all of this, it's been more than just the trade deadline week. This has been a months long sort of saga dealing with Jimmy Butler. That part of it, I am very happy to be done with.
Will there be a little postpartum depression? Or like to give up on this story that you've been holding for
No,
so long? Is it a weird thing or no?
no,
I'm just ready. I'm ready to get the hell
no.
out of here.
I'm so ready. I've been ready for weeks to get this done. And it's like, it has nothing to do with Jimmy Butler. It's just like I'm talking about this and knowing where this is going to, not necessarily knowing that he's going to get traded to Golden State, but like just knowing that this was the resolution ultimately at some point. I was just hoping it was going to be this week as opposed to this summer. And I'm glad that it is.
I have talked about how much we love you as a guest. I will be transparent, as you know. I also love you off the air, man. I'm feel close to you, and that's because I think we have a lot in common. So I'm going to project here, and then you tell me if you do the same. During the NBA trade deadline, and I'm not again, we're not affiliated with the team the way you're affiliated with the Heat, but people. So my friend base knows that we do NBA content, and so I'll get text messages like, "Oh, what insight do you have?" And like, "What do the Warriors consider?" That kind of shit. And I'd like to tell you that it doesn't make me feel important. It makes me feel hell of important. I do not have any insight. It's not like the fucking Warriors are like contacting me at all, but I still leave it with like the feeling of, oh yeah, I do. I do know some things, but I can't really tell you. I gotta keep it in a pocket. For you, that's gotta happen. People do have to text you. So my question is like, do you enjoy it as much as I do? Do you ever share any of the insights you have? Like, how do you experience this?
So my first response is I hate it. Uh, because it does happen and it's a lot. And if you're listening to this and you're a person who has texted me wondering what's happening,
He hates you.
I'm sorry. I hate you so much this week. Dad. But it is but at the same time I do kind of love it because I do engage in it, right? So it's I do it when you know what, and this is really the shitty part about it too, is I don't respond right away because I'm very busy.
Oh yeah.
So you give it like a couple hours. So sorry, just now getting to this. Just been a wild time, as you could probably imagine. Yes, I do think Jimmy Butler gets traded by Thursday. It's like something like that is the text message back, and I have that ready to go. It's just like I have it like copy and pasted, so it just
Of
like
course, dude. So my text backs are very similar. Meanwhile, I don't know anything and I'm not doing anything. I'm not busy at all. I'm just firing it off. All right, boys, enough precursor here. Let's talk Jimmy Butler. So there has been a very large trade involving the Golden State Warriors. Really, there's four teams involved, but let's just boil it down. Yeah. For Warriors fans, here's what matters. The Warriors gave up Slow Mo, Wiggins, Schroeder, and Waters, and a protected first rounder 2025. I'm not sure what that protection is. Do you boys
oh
know?
yeah, top
What is
10
it?
protected
Top
for
10.
this summer.
Okay.
If it does not convey, top 10 protected for 2026, and if
There
it
you go.
does not convey, completely unprotected in 2027.
There you go. They get back Jimmy Butler. I've got a series of questions about this, but first reaction. Maxime, you hear this. What'd you think?
Part of me says, I gotta say that this is great because into this microphone, what, 3 weeks, a month ago, I said, get Steph help, get him Jimmy Butler. So here I am. I gotta put my money where my mouth is.
It was the
Look,
Christmas present, right? I mean, that was the Christmas present episode. That's what you wanted to give Steph Curry, I believe.
it's a bit different when the rubber meets the road, especially after KD being in circulation for rumors, especially after Luka Doncic being evidently tradable, which makes me think, why couldn't we get Giannis? For example, obviously, I'm slightly kidding, but it changes after you've seen what has gone down in this absolute Super Bowl of NBA deadlines. The thing that is the most concerning to me is the extension. Evidently, and I'm curious to hear more from Wes about this, Jimmy was bluffing like crazy because he signed a 2-year extension immediately, even though he said, "There's no way I would ever want to go to the Warriors. Screw you." Um, that has him on our books for this year and then another 2 years at 121 million. That's an insane amount. He's going to be making more than Stephen Curry. Frankly, if he's off our books by the time Steph is off our books, who cares anyways? And if this somehow actually, if we get the 2023 Jimmy Butler that takes us as whatever a lower seed all the way to the finals, I think that Jimmy plus Steph is enough to actually win us a title. Am I saying that we are favorites or even really title contenders? Barely.
Oh,
But if that makes it, if that gets us there, I don't give a shit. This was all worth it, right? I'm not worried about paying him 60 mil a year for 2 more years and it completely tanking our roster if we get this fifth chip for Steph.
I
If
think
we don't, this was a giant, I think, misstep.
I should have said, Maxime, go ahead and destroy my outline by covering every question I have from here in this first response. Wes, we will cover most of the things he just asked you for. 100% he will. First, just first reaction. Did this surprise you? What did you know it was coming the second everything else cratered? I mean, what'd you think when you heard the news?
Sort of saw it coming. I just talking to people on both sides of this thing, it kind of felt like this is where it was going
Yep.
for probably about 48 hours before it happened. And what was really holding it up was whether or not the Heat were going to be able to get Kevin Durant from
Yep.
Phoenix. And then once Kevin Durant said he didn't want to go to Golden State, it was either Kevin Durant requests a trade and he ends up in Miami, or he stays put and the Heat go ahead with this Warriors deal that was kind of on the table all week
Yeah.
before the Kevin Durant stuff happened. So once the Heat got clarity on KD and that he wasn't going to get moved, or that Phoenix was just asking for an insane amount and that they weren't going to trade for him at that amount, they just went ahead with this deal. So I was less surprised by it. I think I think ultimately also like my first reaction was not surprise and mostly just relief that it was over.
Expectations are a motherfucker. Kevin Durant screwed this up for me, right?
Mhm.
I mean, like, it was like expecting to buy a Tesla and then you walk away with like a very nice Honda. I mean, it's just a different thing. And so when it was first announced, I was pissy. And I was. I thought we were gonna have to pay him too much. I wanted Kevin Durant, and so this wasn't the result I wanted. And then, boys, that Utah loss happened. They fell apart again. Right? They've got an 11-point lead with like 3-4 minutes left. They piss it away, and now I couldn't be more on board. And here's why. You know what this team
Wait, that
needs?
was the Wednesday night game, right?
It was just last night.
That happened? I didn't even know that. I had no idea basketball games were being played
Oh,
last
dude,
night. I
yes.
knew that they were
No,
playing
yeah.
Utah, but I saw that they
It
were
wasn't
up. They
basketball. It
lost
was
that
dog
game?
shit. I don't know what the hell we would
Wow.
call that, but it was another throwaway. But here's what it left me thinking. You know what this team needs? In addition to a second scorer, they need an alpha dog asshole. That's what they need. They need someone in the last 4 minutes to hold these guys accountable because that's not who Steph Curry is. And I don't think Draymond can do it anymore. Not because he's not an alpha dog asshole, because his output, how good he is now on the floor, doesn't justify him playing that role in the locker room. It's dwindling returns. They need someone who has the kind of agency, who means so much to the team that when he steps up and says, "Stop fucking around," they will listen. That is Jimmy Butler right now, So I'm not saying that it makes us an immediate contender. We'll talk about that in a moment. But having them go through another shitburger collapsing loss helped me realize how much I am on board for this move. I'm going thumbs up on this.
Can I give you my wife's take on this?
Yes, please.
You know my wife, Jules. So she said right just a few minutes ago before we started recording, She was like, Jimmy Butler is going to be awesome in Golden State because even though he wasn't very good for us, he's like a recently divorced wife who goes and gets a lot of work done
Yeah,
and then she's
yeah,
back
let's
out
go.
on the town. And I was like,
Hell
yeah,
yes.
that's probably that's a good comp.
I love this. Okay. And also a great transition. Some background on me. If I'm thinking
Plastic
about
surgery.
buying something, all
Oh,
right, like I could do anything. First, I'll research the hell out of all the different options. You know, whatever it is, I am buying a new computer. I will look up all the different things. If there's a 3-star review, I'll read. I mean, just everything. But then once I've bought it, once the thing is now in pocket, I continue the research, but all I'm researching now are 5-star reviews. I just want to know what's great about the thing I've already gotten. You know, like fuck it. And so rewind this. The last time we talked to you, you know, we were doing the should we buy it review. You tell me Wiggins versus Butler and like how should we do which one of these guys? Well, fuck that, Wes. It's been done now. I want you to give me the 5-star review on Jimmy Butler. He's on the team, so now all I'm looking for are upsides. You tell us, having watched this guy, having covered him, what did we get and tell it in glowing terms. All right. Give me why we should be happy.
great barista.
Yes.
Um, phenomenal business savvy. Big time aloe yoga sponsorship coming to the Bay Area.
Costumes.
Costumes are great. Terrific quote the couple times a year he'll talk to the media. Um, no, I think what you're really getting here is a guy who you know is going to has a proven track record of rising to the occasion in the playoffs and has another proven track record of being very good when he's pissed off and
Yep.
and feels like he has something to prove. And the Heat weren't getting that because Jimmy felt like he no longer had anything to prove to the Heat. I think now he has a lot to prove to a new organization and frankly just revenge to carry out. I think that's how he carries himself. Like you said, they needed somebody with that kind of attitude. He is that in spades. He might have that more than anybody in the entire league,
Yep.
that attitude. And so you've got that. And then on the court, you think about all the things that the Warriors don't have. Jimmy Butler has, right? For the most part, right? Not all the things, but they don't get to the basket. Jimmy exclusively gets to the basket.
Yeah.
They don't get to the foul line. Jimmy exclusively gets to the foul line. They turn the ball over too much. And this has been even during their dynasty days. They turn the ball over way too much. Jimmy Butler never turns the ball over, like ever. They foul too much. Jimmy Butler is maybe the best on ball defender in the league that doesn't foul. Right? Like even talk about a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr., who won Defensive Player of the Year. He fouled out in like
Yeah.
20% of his games that year.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler is an awesome on-ball defender who generates a lot of steals, which also, as we know, leads to just Steph Curry three-pointers, uh, and never fouls. So all the things that the Warriors were really bad at, Jimmy Butler is just really good at those things. Now, he's going to paint over a lot of those. He can't do it all on his own, but he's going to help in a lot of, and that's why he's just one of these most efficient players and always
Yep.
grades out high on all the advanced metrics. It's a lot of there's a lot of great stuff that what he does in the playoffs that I feel like Heat fans were frustrated that he didn't do in the regular season. But regular season versus playoffs, what makes Jimmy Butler so valuable is what he doesn't do.
Yep.
And I think that's a tremendously interesting thing to add to the mix with Golden State because what makes Golden State so interesting is all the things that they do. And it's sort of the thing, and so kind of having that mix will be really fun to watch.
I didn't want to scooch past too quickly Jules's take because it's not that they added Jimmy Butler, that they've added a motivated "fuck you," the league doesn't believe in me, Jimmy Butler. And that it's a different thing. You know, it's a plus 15, plus 20%. It's something. And I really like the motivation behind it. Maxime triggered this. So I'm going to ask this next question and let's call it what's changed. So rewind the clock, less than a week. Yeah, well, we'll call it a week. A lot of outlets reported, but mainly Kevin O'Connor via his podcast that, quote, my league sources say that Steph Curry specifically has concerns about Jimmy Butler's fit in the locker room. And Steve Kerr shares those feelings. So Golden State's indecision about trading for Butler seems to be largely tied to Steph and Kerr's worry about a personality fit. That wasn't the only story that came out. Here's from an article called Warriors Shift Focus to a $110 million star who doesn't want to join them. Quote, the Golden State Warriors are shifting back their focus to Jimmy Butler after Kevin Durant spurned them. NBA insider Mark Stein reported on Wednesday, but the problem is Butler, like Durant, is not interested in going to Golden State. Per ESPN's Brian Windhorst, The Butler's not interested in signing an extension with the Warriors. So what the fuck changed, Wes? Like Curry didn't want him, Curry didn't want him, Butler didn't want us, and now $121 million, and he's going to be here for this season and the next two. How do you read this?
So I'll take Jimmy's side of this first about I'll address that part first. Jimmy Butler never really wanted to play for the Phoenix Suns. I think he would have been fine. It wasn't like he was dreaming of wearing the same jersey Charles Barkley once wore, right? Like I don't think he has like some sort of admiration for that organization and just couldn't wait to play and be a Phoenix Sun player. He just knew that they were going to pay him. And I don't think that there was any I don't think that he got the sense that Golden State was. And I think he stamped his approval on this trade. Not that he needed to, because it's not like he has a no trade clause, but I think he stamped his approval on the trade once it became clear that the Warriors would give him the extension. And that's really it. That's all Jimmy Butler's ever cared about in this entire situation. It's the only reason he's not in Miami still is because he wanted the money. And there are not a lot of teams in a position to give him money, including the Miami Heat. The Warriors were in a unique position where they could because they have a number one guy in Steph. Jimmy Butler is no longer a number one guy. He needed a Batman. Jimmy Butler's a Robin. Robin saves the town in a few episodes. He could still do that, but the Heat just didn't have a Batman. And so, I think the Warriors were uniquely situated where they could at least justify giving Jimmy Butler the money. Now, on the part for Jimmy Butler, why it changed, or why the Warriors changed their tune on Jimmy Butler, I don't know about you, but like listening to those comments in Utah, it didn't really seem like it was. I think Steph Curry didn't give him the green light, but maybe it was a yellow light.
Yeah.
And this to me was the front office and ownership just saying, like this price is so low, we can't really not do it. And I know everybody loved Andrew Wiggins, but it was a 500 team. It's like, what are we really worried about breaking up here? And it's only going to cost us the one pick that we don't really like. Okay. It doesn't even cost us Kevon Looney or Gary Payton II, other guys that we love in that locker room. So
Or Kuminga.
And that was the big thing too. So all this talk about, I do believe that like a couple weeks ago when you've got Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Draymond Green out there in the media saying we're not going to mortgage the future, we're not going to do anything irresponsible. I didn't take that as posturing. I actually believe I took them for their word at face value. I believe that. I do believe that they care about the future of the organization, even if they're not going to be a part of it. I think they really do care about it. This didn't cost them that. It would have been almost, you could argue, malpractice to not do this deal if you were Mike Dunleavy. I think it's a good deal for the Heat too, for the record. But this was, if you're the Warriors and you've been looking for this second star next to Steph, like this is as good of a deal as it gets for you. And so yeah, I just think that's what changed. And they said, you know what, this is all it's going to cost. We don't have the mortgage of future. We'll give him the extension because we can kind of afford to do it. Because like Maxime said, who cares really about the money at the end? It's just about competing with Steph. I think that's why it all changed.
Two bad analogies for me. Number one, flipping houses. So this from like the first thing they did, like so there's 1,000 TV shows where realtors go out, buy a shitty house, put new paint, whatever it is, fix the foundation, sell it for a lot more. I love the idea that they went in, got Wiggins, fixed him up, gave him a new reputation, sold him out. Now they're going to do the same thing with Butler. That he was in this distressed asset that they swooped in, got it for cheaper than it was, and are now going to make it a more valuable thing. I like that. What's changed from the Warriors' perspective, this is not the best guess, that's all it is, but this reminded me of a high school prom where everybody else had dates and the two people who didn't looked at each other like, is this still working for you? Like, oh, let's go. We've got no other options. The second that Durant pulled himself off the table and the Warriors had already kind of pot committed, that there was so many stories about them wanting an all-star and they had made so many calls. I felt like they had to get somebody. And so when that's, and there's nobody else available, they had to go back to Jimmy Butler. I mean, I think that it was this is just the thing that played itself out. It might not have been their first option, but it was one that worked. What's your guess, Maxime?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And there's, I think, one other component to this that seems to be floating around that ought to be addressed, which is the take that Draymond and Jimmy Butler are not going to get along in the locker room. There's a level of absurdity to that I think is fairly childish. people had the same concerns about Chris Paul coming into the locker room. Turns out, when you care about basketball, Chris Paul respects you, even if you were enemies before you got onto the same team. The idea that Jimmy Butler had problems in Minnesota because Wiggins and Cat were fucking off for whatever reason. In Miami, the reasons, as Wes laid out, are probably more around Pat Riley refusing to give him an extension. But it's clear that Riley runs that team with an iron fist. And at a certain point, Jimmy Butler didn't like the way it was run. Kerr is famously pro player and is going to give Jimmy a much more latitude to do what he wants to do. I could see actually this being a fantastic relationship between Draymond and Jimmy. And now, in general, I think the reason that the Warriors decided to do this, look, we are 2 games out of sixth right now. Maybe that's changed actually because this was before the Utah game, but nonetheless, like the West is still pretty packed to get into these standings. There's a world in which we actually aren't even the 8 seed going into the playoffs, don't even have to face OKC until at least the second or third round. That's a huge leg up to get to playoff Jimmy, right? That we could avoid the plan altogether and have an actual seed into the playoffs straight up. This is the bet that you make 10 times out of 10 because Steph and Jimmy together can make anything happen in the postseason.
Wes, quick hitters, all right? Because I have kept you longer than I promised, but there's some things I need your take on. Maxime just triggered one of them, the Draymond of it all. You've covered both, man. You have spent a season with Draymond. You've spent a season with Jimmy. Can they get along in a locker room?
Yeah, I think people that think that they can't probably just, I don't know, like how do you say this without sounding like you've never been in a locker room, you've never played sports. Like these guys are just they're top level athletes. A lot of these guys are kind of like that. It's just Jimmy and Draymond are very unique personalities, so they just come across as louder, and oftentimes they just are simply louder. They'll be fine together. They're top-notch athletes. They're top-notch competitors. I think they're going to respect each other more than anything. I think it's also going to make for some hilarious moments.
Yeah.
But that'll be good stuff for the Warriors fans.
This is an oversimplification too, but I think that pairing, Draymond and Jimmy, is going to make teams not want to play them in the playoffs more so than Jimmy and Steph. You know, I think that fuck you energy on the defensive end is going to be like if I'm a top seed, I don't really need that in my life in any way, which leads to the next question.
Well, wait, can I point out one more thing on that too?
Of course.
Who's the guy that Draymond famously clashed the most with other than Jordan Poole?
Yusuf Nurkic.
On his own teammates. Kevin Durant, right?
Oh, right.
Kevin Durant and Draymond are very different in how they handle things. Kevin Durant, very reserved, keeps it to himself. Draymond Green, very out there, tells you exactly how he feels. They clashed because they didn't communicate the same way. Jimmy and Draymond communicate exactly the same way. If I have a problem with you, you're going to know about it.
Yep.
That's it. And I think there's going to be a mutual respect, and that's actually why they're going to get along. They might argue, they might get into fights, but just teammate stuff. It's not going to blow up on the sideline the way that Draymond and Kevin Durant did.
When you've had a couple of people who had some, I mean, maybe not as alpha dog as Jimmy Butler, but who've been in that locker room. David West, Andrew Bogut, like there's been some people who Draymond has shared space with, and it's been all respect. It's worked out really well, which is exactly what you're saying.
Andre Iguodala is very much like that, yes. And they had a lot of success together.
And it's what Maxime was saying too. They are also really care the most about basketball, and they can see that from each other. Okay, nicknames. All right, nicknames for Jimmy and Draymond. Not Jimmy and Steph. Jimmy and Draymond. I'm embarrassed by this because the only one I can come up with is anger management. So there's one. All right. But the other two came from ChatGPT. So the three I'm giving you: anger management, tech bros, which I thought was pretty clever. The like technical and then tech bros because of San Francisco. And then the temper twins was the third one. Anger management, tech bros, the temper twins, or your guys' call, the field. Do you like any of them?
Tech Bros sounds the best, and it might catch on. It's not completely accurate because Draymond's really the only one of the two that gets technical fouls. Like Jimmy Butler doesn't actually get the technical fouls. The temper twins I think is pretty funny though. That's a pretty good one because Jimmy's temperature will run hot, but he doesn't like get technical fouls because of it. He just ends up scoring instead. But yeah, I think that one could work. I like it.
That's too bad that you didn't say anger management, since that's the only one I came up with.
Also, no, I mean, obviously that's the best one.
The best one.
I thought you asked me the second.
The worst. One. No, okay, there you go. I mean, my fault. That was shitty hosting by me. Is the money right? Wes, $54 million next year, $58 the year following. Would you have given him this contract?
No, and I'm glad the Heat did not.
You motherfucker. Yeah, I was worried about asking that question.
But like,
I
no,
mean,
they were like I said, they were in a different spot. They needed a
yeah.
Batman. They couldn't pay him like a Batman.
Yep.
That's fine.
And I'll back what Maxime has said. That what they are doing is they've linked him with the Draymond, Steph, Kerr timeline. That's what they're doing, and so that all of these contracts will come off the books. And at that stage, we're all the way in. At the risk of overusing the phrase pot committed, we're pot committed, So you might as well ultimately pay him. Wes, if they had contacted them in the offseason, not now, if they'd called them in the offseason before all of this dog shit popped up, is there any way Miami makes this move for this trade package? We don't include, it's a kind of a bullshit first rounder, heavily protected first rounder, no JK, so it's the players they got. Is there any way Miami says yes?
No, I don't. They would not have said yes. I actually think it's a pretty good first rounder for the record. I think the top 10 protections is a pretty good negotiation there. But no, they wouldn't. I think maybe they probably should have had those conversations, but they would not have done that. No.
Yeah. And Maxime, finish that picture. If you're Mike Dunleavy, they called you last night. They offer you this trade. You say yeah?
As it stands?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I think the backlash from the fan base, probably the backlash from Lacob, if we stood pat once again, it would be the death knell to my job. You can't. It is so clear that Steph is screaming as loud as Steph would possibly scream that this is not working. So Mike Dunleavy had to do something. Thank God he did this. Thank God I did this as Mike Dunleavy, because it was either that or I was probably getting fired this season.
Last question is a food one before I do it. Let me just quick take here. To all the people out there who were getting so frustrated before the Warriors made this move, saying that Lacob is a terrible owner, you don't know shit. Go back and look at what Cohan used to be, what it means to have an owner who doesn't care. Once you've brought in a dynasty, 4 championships later, that take should be taken off the table. Last one for you, Wes. Give me a food take that you can support, that you actually believe in, but that will trigger people out there. Because I don't mind telling you, the corn tacos take, people are still angry about. The hot dog counts as a taco, people are still angry about. So what do you got this time, man?
What was my corn tacos take?
That corn tacos should never be used. That
corn tortillas.
Only. Tortillas. Yeah, sorry.
I said they should never be used? Wow, that's a strong take by me. I'm a little mad at me.
And I agreed with it. I can tell you that you were 100% right. Here, I'll start off. Here's my triggering food take. Candy corn, pretty good. I'm just telling you.
I'm with you. Yes.
I enjoy candy corn. I don't know what to tell you.
All
I like
colors.
it. I like it when I get it. I kind of like the waxy consistency. I just
get
like
excited.
it. It's a straightforward sugar delivery device. So
I'll one up you, Bram. Candy corn, best part of Halloween.
Let's go. All right. You have in fact one up me. You have lived up to your triggering name, and most importantly, Wes, you've lived up.
I have a better food take though. I got a good one.
What do you got?
All right. So, do we need to cut it off? Are we going too long?
No. Go ahead.
All right. So I have a story that I'm stealing from a friend of mine who still lives in the Bay Area. He moved to a new house, and the neighbors. This is crazy. In the year 2025, the neighbors got him a gift, like a welcome to the neighborhood thing. It's like you never hear about neighbors doing that anymore, especially, no offense to like the Bay Area, but like in like major cities, like it just never happens anymore.
No, I'd be suspicious. I'd be like, what have you?
Well, he was. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd open
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he was. And I asked, like, well, what was it? And he goes, soup. And I go, throw that shit away now. Soup is too loose. It's you could put too many things in soup. You have no idea what they hide in that soup. A lot of these things with these emulsion blenders, you could do a lot of stuff with that. You could put a lot of stuff in that. There could be any manner of things in that soup. So my food take here is just don't gift soup. Also, I kind of hate soup. I think soup is not a food group.
Okay.
Now
you're
not only
being
is it not
ridiculous.
filling.
No, you're being totally ridiculous. It's not a
It's
food
so
group.
boring. Soup is so boring. After like 2 spoons, I'm like, all right, I get it. Why do I have a whole bowl of this?
You've clearly Mexican chicken tortilla soup, hell of exciting. Clam chowder, hell of exciting.
That's
Jambalaya,
chowder, different.
counts as a soup, hell of exciting.
Jambalaya does not count as a
Counts
soup.
as a soup.
Jambalaya
No, this is
mostly rice.
in my world. It does. It counts as an exciting soup. I'll have you know right now. In fact, I gift jambalaya
cereal
to anyone
soup?
who moves into my neighborhood. It's just a thing I like to do. It's, I'm just a nice person.
It's a
Cereal
rotisserie
soup.
chicken soup. Like, how is jambalaya soup? Doesn't make any
Delicious.
sense.
It's not
If
just
it's
a
in a
soup.
bowl, it's soup.
It's a delicious soup. And if we get aggregated, Wes Goldberg says soup is too loose. That's going to be an incredible headline. I am already looking forward to it, Wes. For people who need far more soup is too loose takes in their life, where do they go?
For the Locked On Soup podcast. Locked On. No, guys, go listen to Real GM Radio. We're doing that once a week. Go to YouTube, subscribe on our YouTube channel. We just launched it. We can use all the subscribers over there. So that is an actual. I know I usually don't plug stuff at the end, but that's an actual. Please just go to visit the YouTube. Hit the little button. You don't even have to watch it. Just hit the button and move it along.
They are doing great work over there. You know how much we support Wes, and it's not because of our friendship. It's because of his professional excellence. Go enjoy it. You can also help us out. You do not have to watch us either, but if you subscribe and at least hit play, that'll mean the world to us. You can do that up on YouTube. You can follow us on social media, the whole 9 yards. And with that in mind, go Warriors. And hopefully we'll see you real soon.